show trial. What officials are saying is, without a formal vote by the House, the White House is deprived certain rights they would have in an impeachment process, including the right to have White House counsel present at all depositions by congressional committees.
So far, the Speaker has resisted that vote. What do we expect this week on Capitol Hill, Pierre?
So, George, it's going to be a key week on Capitol Hill. Gordon Sondland, who is the ambassador to the European Union, he's expected to be deposed on Capitol Hill. Also, the ambassador to the Ukraine, who was fired in the midst of all this controversy, her name is Marie Yovanovitch. She's expected to testify as well, George. So, a key week on Capitol Hill.
Okay, Pierre, John, thanks very much. Let's bring in our legal experts on impeachment. Barbara Comstock, former Republican member of Congress who served as chief counsel for the House Government Reform Committee during President Clinton's impeachment. And Kate Shaw, who served as legal counsel in the Obama White House, now a professor of constitutional law at Cardozo Law School. You know, and Kate, let me begin with you. When I was speaking with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi this week, she said a resolution is not necessary, but there has been a resolution for every other presidential impeachment.
Right. So I think Speaker Pelosi is clearly correct that a resolution isn't required. It's not required by the Constitution or the House's rules, but you're right, it's historical practice to do one of these resolutions. So I think even if there's no requirement, there are a couple of advantages to the House to doing a resolution. One, I think it calls the White House's bluff on some of these document disputes. The White House says, we're not going to produce anything until you do a resolution. Well, you've taken that argument off the table if you pass a resolution. And two, I think to the extent that some of these disputes end up in court, I think the House's position would be strengthened if they have embarked on the same kind of resolution that has predated other kinds of presidential impeachment processes. So there are, I think, prudential arguments for doing the resolution.
And it does, as we've said, give the White House some protections.
Yes, and, you know, during the Clinton impeachment, Chairman Henry Hyde, who is the Republican chairman, went back and looked at what Chairman Rodino did during the Nixon impeachment and virtually replicated it. So we need to have a vote on the House floor, have that resolution, and then be able to move forward so the public feels that it's fair. Because with some of the things that Adam Schiff has done already, the parody that he did, that certainly a Peter Rodino or say a Barbara Jordan would never have made a statement like that. That's really undermined his credibility, as well as, you know, lying about the whistleblower. So I think they need to get this back on track and have those rights and have that vote in the House.
Meantime, you know, House Speaker Pelosi has said she wants a streamlined process. But is the president now courting new articles of impeachment with this call to China and Ukraine to investigate the Bidens?
Well, yeah, they can include anything in their impeachment things, the obstruction. So yes, and I think the kind of things that he's criticizing Mitt Romney for saying, even Tucker Carlson has said the same thing. So I think we need to, you know, get back to focusing on what are the issues here. We're going to hear from firsthand witnesses, and that's important. You know, the whistleblowers and other whistleblowers that may come forward, they'll have information and guidance, but what the impeachment committee can do once they have that vote is hear firsthand from people who were involved directly in these things.
And Kate, what does this committee need to do to build their case, to establish their case? Do they need to establish there's a direct quid pro quo between the president and the Ukrainian president?
Yeah. So I think President Trump would clearly like this debate to be framed in those terms. Was there a quid pro quo? And he hopes that the answer is that no smoking gun evidence will emerge to establish a quid pro quo. So I'd say a couple of things. One, I think that sort of fundamentally misunderstands the nature of impeachment. Impeachment is not about ordinary criminal offenses. Some things that aren't crimes could be impeachable, and not all crimes should be impeachable. So I think that impeachment is really about abuse of authority, right? Political misconduct. And so I think the House would be well served to focus on that as opposed to getting caught up in these debates about quid pro quo. All that said, if they want to build an article around a quid pro quo, I think they already have a lot of evidence that supports that case, just from the call transcript, the whistleblower complaint, and the additional text messages that we have seen emerge. And of course, more evidence is likely to come out.
And they've now said that any form of non-cooperation by the White House is an obstruction article.
Well, they did do that during the Nixon impeachment. But I think the you know, the quid pro quo is very difficult to prove. And again, that's where Adam Schiff has kind of raised the bar again and put expectations out there. So that's why we need to hear directly from these firsthand witnesses. And you're right, the impeachment can be on anything. This needs to be taken seriously. And I wanted to quote from Barbara Jordan, because when you go back, she said, "We are trying to be big because the task before us is big." We need to all, you know, both sides need to take this very seriously and have a process, have rights for the minority, have rights for the president's counsel, and take this in a very serious manner.
Barbara, Kate, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And we're joined now by the chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Congressman, thanks for coming in this morning. You just saw that Barbara Jordan quote, "The House has to be big here." And Speaker Pelosi has resisted this notion of a formal vote, but why not follow the precedent and have it?
Well, there is no requirement for a cosmetic procedural vote. As was indicated, there's no requirement.
But every other presidential impeachment has had it.
Correct. And a majority of the House of Representatives supports the impeachment inquiry. We are in the midst of one. The Speaker has made that clear. We are going to proceed expeditiously. We're going to proceed fairly. We're going to proceed comprehensively. Now, the Speaker has said that there is something that might be considered moving forward, and we'll see what happens when we come back on the recess. But the bottom line is the central allegations that are at issue here. The president betrayed his oath of office. He's engaged in serious wrongdoing. The administration, without justification, withheld $391 million in military aid from a vulnerable Ukraine. The president then pressured a foreign leader to interfere in the 2020 elections and target an American citizen for political gain. That is textbook abuse of power. It undermines our national security. That's the issue that we should be dealing with moving
If it
forward.
is, then why not have the vote?
Well, as I indicated, the Speaker has said that might be possible, but a majority of the House of Representatives has already made clear that we support the impeachment inquiry. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are going to raise things about the deep state. They're going to raise things about a cosmetic procedural vote. They're going to raise wild conspiracy theories because they do not want to defend the substance of the allegations and charges.
They have also criticized the way that Chairman Schiff has handled this investigation so far, including in what they call the selective release of the text messages from the ambassadors this week. Here's Mark Meadows, your Republican colleague, with a tweet saying there's a reason why Adam Schiff released cherry-picked text messages and not the transcript of the Volcker interview. It's because he's misleading. Again, the actual interview directly undermined Democrats' impeachment effort. Release the transcript. Show Americans the truth. Why not release the full transcript?
We'll see what happens moving forward, but I have full confidence in Chairman Schiff. And let's understand this. The evidence of wrongdoing by Donald Trump is hiding in plain sight. The administration, without reason, rationale, or justification, withheld the $391 million in aid from the Ukraine. The president, on a phone call, as confirmed by a rough transcript on July 25th, released by the White House, pressured a foreign government to target an American citizen. The president's own words in the public domain have indicated that he doesn't think there's any problem with soliciting foreign interference. The whistleblower complaint has been corroborated by information in the public domain every step of the way. This is as serious as it gets.
So you think there's enough evidence to impeach right now?
No, I'm not saying that. There's enough evidence to proceed with the serious nature of the impeachment inquiry that is underway. At the end of the process, we're just going to follow the facts. We're going to apply the law, we're going to be guided by the Constitution, and we're going to see where that leads in order to present the truth to the American people.
We saw John Call report that the White House is saying they're not going to comply with subpoenas until there is that formal House vote. Why not call their bluff? And if they do indeed refuse to comply with the subpoenas, is that an obstruction article?
Well, Chairman Schiff and Chairman Engel and Chairman Cummings have made clear that the failure to comply with a lawfully issued congressional subpoena undermines a congressionally and constitutionally mandated process as relates to the impeachment inquiry, and itself could lead to a negative inference as relates to the information that's being hidden. And the question has to be asked, if Donald Trump has nothing to hide, why does he continue to hide information, hide documents, hide evidence from the American people?
Concerned he can draw this process out by taking all this to court?
Not at all. And as the Speaker has indicated, we are going to proceed expeditiously because this is a matter of urgent national concern. That, in fact, was the conclusion of the Inspector General to the intelligence community, who, by the way, is a Trump appointee. We also have a circumstance where the General Counsel to the CIA, a Trump appointee, made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice because she was concerned by the wrongdoing as it related to the president. So we have Trump appointees who are clearly unnerved by the lawlessness of this president.
Some Trump appointees have participated in the inquiry so far, but most Republicans are holding the line behind President Trump right now. Does it concern you that this becomes a partisan exercise and that it could actually backfire heading into the 2020 election?
Well, we think that there's growing support for the impeachment inquiry that exists across party lines. Evidence of that can be found in the fact that more than 300 national security professionals who served in Republican administrations and Democratic administrations have expressed public support for the impeachment inquiry and the fact that these allegations that the wrongdoing that occurred here by the president is serious in nature.
The president thinks it's going to energize his base, could actually help him in the re-election.
Well, we think we need to tell the story to the American people of what happened. Congress, on a bipartisan basis, allocated military and economic aid to Ukraine. Ukraine is a friend, Russia is a foe. Ukraine is a democracy, Russia is a dictatorship. Ukraine is currently under attack by Russian-backed separatists. They're in a very vulnerable situation. In that context, the aid is withheld. In February, the administration wrote to Congress and said the aid is on the way. It never arrived. Then in May, they wrote again to Congress through the Department of Defense and said the aid is on the way. And in fact, the Department of Defense said that the Ukrainian government has met all necessary steps and protocols, including the implementation of anti-corruption measures, yet the aid never arrived because there's no explanation. Then you have the July 25th phone call. Then all of a sudden, the aid thereafter gets released after the president pressures the Ukrainian president to target.
Concern that charge is going to stick and that impeachment will overwhelm the rest of your agenda.
No, we're going to continue to do the business of the American people. Focus on dealing with the fact that we pay more for medicine in this country than any other developed country in the world without explanation. We've promised that we're going to work to fix our crumbling infrastructure. We want to invest at least $1 trillion, create 16 million good-paying jobs. We want to get to yes, as the Speaker has consistently indicated, on the renegotiated U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement. We want to do it in a way that's in the best interest of our farmers and manufacturing jobs in this country. We will not be distracted by our constitutional responsibility. That will proceed on a separate track.
Congressman Jeffries, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.
GOP response from Congressman Jim Jordan is coming up. Plus, 538's Nate Silver and our roundtable.